morning. Chief Foreign Correspondent Philip Williams joins us now from Canberra. Phil, good morning. So the gun debate is never far from the surface in the US. What's happened with the gun debate in the US in the wake of this shooting?
Well, you'd expect an outcry. You'd expect people to be calling for changes to the gun laws, which vary from state to state. But those calls will probably go unheeded as the Americans have a passion for their guns. They feel that they have the Second Amendment right to bear arms and are unlikely to support any major changes. Of course, those that have suffered the massacres and those that are on the left of the political spectrum, are more likely to call for stricter gun laws. But we've had massacres of school children, we've had massacres of people in clubs, nearly 50 people killed just a short while, not a few months ago in Florida, and still nothing. So don't expect any great reforms from this. This is just another disaster, another terrible event along that path, but it doesn't mean there'll be massive legislative change. I think that's highly unlikely. You've got the National Rifle Association, very powerful body, which supports the rights of people to hold guns. This looks likely that this person has accumulated, well, we think possibly up to nearly 40 firearms, some of which he had at the hotel, some of which were in his house. How did he manage to accumulate them? Well, in Nevada, it's very easy. You simply go into a gun shop, you give your license, you can buy semi-automatic weapons. You can buy machine guns if they were manufactured before 1986 when they were banned. They can still be transferred from one owner to the other. It still remains to be seen exactly what weapons were used here, but if he was able to accumulate these weapons without attracting any attention, then clearly the gun laws, for those that are opposed to the accumulation of these weapons, have failed miserably. For those that advocate the freedom to basically have whatever you want, they would say, probably still continue to argue, well, if we don't have these weapons at home, the bad guys will get us. So that argument fundamentally doesn't change.
I noticed one consultant on US TV was describing the laws in Nevada as the Wild West. Are they some of the most unrestrictive laws in relation to guns, those laws in Nevada on guns?
Absolutely, and we don't know exactly how many guns he had or how he accumulated them, but there was one gun shop owner in Nevada who said, yes, I sold him weapons. We don't know if he sold them all those weapons, but clearly if there are no cross-checks as to how many weapons people are accumulating, they can obviously get an armoury together like this. If he'd only had one or two weapons, then perhaps it would have been harder for him to reload. There would have been a greater time for people to escape. If he had 10 weapons or more at hand, fully loaded, ready to go, then he clearly was able to inflict more damage. Well, however way you look at it, these guns have been responsible for the deaths of nearly 60 people and injuring 500. If they had not if they'd had tighter gun controls, he may well have not been able to inflict as much damage, and that's pretty well incontrovertible. However, those that advocate for gun ownership will say, well, it's not the guns that kill, it's people. But they can't kill as many in a short space of time as has happened here if they don't have the armoury and also the semi-automatic or perhaps automatic weapons that we use.
And those people who support gun ownership have said in the last few hours, I've noted that the laws in, for example, a city like Chicago are more restrictive, and they say that hasn't necessarily helped there. So that's an example of why tighter gun laws don't necessarily work. What do you make of that argument?
Well, exactly, and that's exactly the argument that Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the President Trump's spokesperson, said. So clearly they're not likely to shift their opinion in any way. So she pointed to Chicago. She said, look, there have been 3,000 deaths so far this year in Chicago. They've got some of the tightest gun laws in the country, so clearly that doesn't work. So the sentiment there clearly is that I would doubt very much if President Trump, during his visit to Las Vegas, he's scheduled to go there on Wednesday, I'd be very surprised if he announces any sort of push to tighten gun laws. There may be some tinkering around the edges. there's the question of mental stability when people buy weapons. How do they prove that they are suitable to have these sort of weapons in the first place? Clearly, the gun shop owner that sold some of these weapons to him at least said there was nothing indicating anything out of the ordinary. Well, I guess in that particular state, having an armoury, selling multiple weapons, it isn't out of the ordinary. It's a right, and there's no legal way to challenge that. And so we've really got this polarised view yet again, and I doubt that there's going to be any significant change, even though this is a terrible disaster. Of course, we had our own with Port Arthur. That prompted massive change. That prompted a fundamental change in gun ownership in this country. And the statistics reflect a reduction in the deaths by gun shot since then.
And I noticed one of the people quoted in the US story since the Las Vegas shooting is the mother of one of the victims from the Sandy Hook massacre, who's been speaking out repeatedly about this and holds Congress partly responsible because the laws, the stronger laws, just haven't been passed. How much influence and sway have those family members, those relatives of people killed in incidents like Sandy Hook had on the US debate?
Well, clearly not enough. They have. What more could you possibly ask when your child, your kindergarten child, has been slaughtered? That if that doesn't have effect, what does? If your child or your loved one was killed in a nightclub in Orlando, what more do you need? If your child or your loved one is killed in a concert, people having a good time, country music in Las Vegas, if that has no effect, then what will have? That's why I'm rather pessimistic that there will be any shift to change the laws fundamentally. And as I say, the gun lobby is incredibly powerful in the United States. There are almost as many weapons in the United States held privately as there are citizens. And so I don't see any real push to fundamentally change that.
Yeah, but I noticed the